Kellyanne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, can we start with you sharing your journey with us and how did you start your coaching business?
Oh my gosh. So I was actually a pro makeup artist and traveled the world for about 2 decades. And I was always in the service and sales industry. And then in 2016, I was diagnosed with MS and this other disease, neuromyelitis optica, NMO for short. And I realized that the luxury travel business I was currently running in Las Vegas at the time and all the other businesses and ventures I had needed to come to the internet because I didn't know when I was about to become blind and paralyzed. And I needed to help other small business owners, such as myself, in their business, whether it was like social media, LinkedIn, anything like that, but online. And that's when it really started, is I had to pivot my entire career. And so I started coaching. I used all of my experience in sales and luxury travel and service and just everything I'd had my hands in for so long, and brought it online and started coaching people, whether it was with their business or in their life, because I pride myself on the service I give my guests and my clients, but also being organized. And I know that there's so many successful people in real life and online that are running these multi-million-dollar businesses or even small businesses. And they're just like, they know that they can do more, but they need to be organized to get to that next level. And just being so organized myself from like the years of growing up to literally doing that as a business, I realized, wow, I can really help more people like get organized in their business and then coach them with all my experience. So I like summed it all into 2 different coaching experiences. That's a very long story short.
Oh, that's great. So how have you been able to use some of the things you've overcome in your life to coach others?
Definitely gratitude is like a huge practice for myself. And I preach that to my clients. Listen, if you can get up in the morning, you can accomplish anything. The fact that you're able to get up, once your eyeballs are able to open and you can step out of bed and walk somewhere, get your delicious iced coffee like I do every morning, like you can accomplish anything. So I think that resilience for myself is huge. I think that like you can have the whole world on a silver platter. You just need to figure out in your own way the steps that need to be taken to get there. You and I can do the same project, but we're going to do it 2 totally different ways.
Yep.
Some people are organized where they have their mail all over the place and post-its everywhere, but that's how their brain works. That's how they run their systems in their household or in their business. And you need to realize that, especially as a coach. Okay, if their brain works this way, like you need to understand that and help them in this way. But I think that because I've gone through such a crazy I was misdiagnosed, by the way, let's get that over with. And since then, I'm like, okay, I got a second chance at life. Like I can help more people. So everything that I've gone through has really given me an extra opportunity to help more people because of all the negativity. Like I can help people not have to go through something like that.
Yeah, that's really good. So what are your top tips for increasing productivity and getting organized?
Oh my God, routines. You have to have a routine. I am, again, so organized, but I am so strategic when it comes to routines. And there's so many studies out there too with habits, right? You start a habit. Like for me personally, like I'm working out every day. I go to the sauna every day. I'm very routine. And those are helping me in my weight loss goals. Those are helping me with my mental health, getting outside, getting fresh air, vitamin D. And so I think that setting yourself up for success is really important. I write about this in my book. I'm somebody that always is scheduled just as much as I am organized. So the night before, like tonight, I'm going to look at my planner and be like, okay, I know exactly how tomorrow's going to go. I always need to know the night before. On Friday, I usually plan my next week ahead so that on the weekend, I can just not even check out if I want. Sometimes I work on the weekend, sometimes I don't. But I think that being strategic with your routines, find a couple things in the morning that make sense to you, whether it's meditation or just if you have a lot of kids running around, like you need to set your alarm 15 minutes earlier just to have that like you time. So even if it's 10-15 minutes, find something on YouTube or a podcast or a meditation. Journaling is huge. And I do the same thing at night to wind down, whether it's my red light therapy or binging my Bravo shows. That's what works for me. That's what I enjoy. That's what helps relax me. And then I go to bed. But I always listen to sound baths because that's really healing. I'm really into holistic healing, especially since I was misdiagnosed. And I feel like If I just have 2 or 3 things in the morning and at night, that creates a habit, but that also is my routine. And that at the end of the day creates a successful day for the next because you're prepared. But then, of course, if you get 800 curveballs thrown at you, which is normal as a working mom or entrepreneur, business owner, like you could be planned all you want, but hello, the pandemic happened. Nobody knew that was about to happen and everybody had to pivot. So if something is about to happen, like in your own day the night before, I feel like you're a little bit more prepared so that when those curveballs do come, you're like, okay, I've got this. I can handle that. So I think routine is just huge, huge.
Yeah. I really like one of the things you said was even if you just need to get up 10 minutes earlier, because I think
Yeah.
that that's so accessible to people. They're not like, oh, I've got to get up an hour or 3 hours early. It's 10 minutes. Anyone
Mhm.
can do that. So it's very reachable. So how can businesses expand their brand?
Podcasting. Number one, hands down, all the way, podcasting. So, long story short, when I launched my show in 2017, it was because it's called the Kellyanne Cares podcast. It was originally The Happy Workaholic. I rebranded to Everything is Messy, which is the name of my book. Now it's Kellyanne Cares. So, when I launched my show, it was for 2 reasons. It was to help other patients with an autoimmune disease, and it was the only way that I could make money, my voice. That was all I was going to have if I couldn't see or move. So that's why I launched my show. When that happened, as we're both in the digital space, everyone was asking me, like, how did you do that? And this was years ago when no one had any information. I just figured it out. I was uploading video files as MP3 audio files. I had no idea what show notes were. Like, I just made a miracle happen. And I created something that needed to exist. And now I have a podcast development company. That's all I do. And that has completely changed my business, my brand, myself. It's changed my life. Unfortunately, thankfully, I was misdiagnosed, but because that happened to me, I was very lucky to have something really positive come out of it. But I think that having a podcast can get you in front of an audience that you never have access to. You can have 1 million followers on Instagram and TikTok, but you never know who's searching for content that we're creating. And all they do is just look in their little podcast app and they find it. And then when they want to come to us for more, that's building our business. That's expanding our brand. I think podcasting, hands down, is the way to go.
Yeah, I love that. So when it comes to mental health and business, what are some important areas to focus on?
Definitely check out when you feel the urge, like you need to get off the internet. Like you have to. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I preach this all the time. You and I are content creators. We're constantly running a business. We're constantly creating content. We need a break sometime to get some new juices flowing. You know what I mean? And if you're somebody, I've been very vocal since being misdiagnosed that I struggle with anxiety, depression, PTSD. I help patients every single day. I'm a huge patient advocate. And not everybody feels comfortable coming on the internet and crying their eyes out and sharing their story. And that's okay. But I feel okay doing it. So by sharing my story, I'm able to help more. But I think that you really need to sit down and have a talk with yourself. What can I handle today? Because there's been some times, some really dark times where I'm lucky I can even get out of bed. And you know me, like my personality now, I'm like, wow, I want to change the world. But I'm like, you need to listen to your body. And if you don't, like, you're going to have voices in your head. You need to just chill out. And if you have an instant nudge or a feeling in your gut, you've got to go with it and just know that it's okay to check out and clock out and take a break. Those are needed. And it's so important. And I think that since the pandemic, people are realizing how much they were struggling with anxiety and depression and their go at these corporate jobs. They didn't even know what it was. They're like, I thought I was just going to have a heart attack. I'm like, no, that's like a panic attack. You're going to, I think it's important to like really listen to your body. And if you don't, you're just going to be screwed in the long run.
Yeah. I had somebody that said that to me the other day. She didn't want to do social media because she said that she felt the pressure to be on all the time. And it's interesting because that comment was interesting to me because I think that consistency, it produces a lot of content and you don't have to be on all the time. You could be on once a week. If you just want to do one video a week, then that's good enough. That's going to get you traction. And I think that sometimes there is that pressure because you go out there and you're looking at everyone else's content, and because it's consistently being fed at you, you think that they're always on there. But in reality, there's people are taking a month off.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not posting stuff, or they just have something in their draft, something that was a draft that they never published and they just decide to publish it. I think that there's just a little pressure there that I think that a lot of people put on themselves that really is unnecessary.
I absolutely agree with that, especially creating content for a living online. You have to batch your content. You and I both do that with our shows, but I know you have a big presence on TikTok now and on LinkedIn, as do I. And I did videos, I think it was like pre-pandemic actually, how to batch 2 weeks of content in less than 2 hours, like with full glam. Because I was a makeup artist. Let me do the clothes and the glam. And now I'm like, let's add a filter and go on with no makeup. But I wanted to show you, like, don't go crazy. Like for me, like my specific week, Monday through Friday, in a perfect world, Monday, I like to record. Tuesday, I like to write. Wednesday, I film. Each day is designated to a task. So the day that I have to record, I'm batching like a month or two of podcasts. The day I have to film, I'm banging out like 100 TikToks and they sit in my drafts. When I need that break, I always have a backup. If you look on my Instagram, whenever you see ocean or I go for my walks on the beach, I'm constantly filming something. So the days that I need something, I can at least do a voiceover and still be there. But I think it's really important, again, to be scheduled and organized, and whether it's with your life or business, so that you can have those moments to take a break and you've already got stuff prepared. But in the case that you don't, it's okay. I put a lot of pressure on myself when I'm not able to be on a live at 6 p.m. or when I'm like, you know what? It's just I'm the only one doing that to myself. Nobody's coming to me and saying, where were you?
Yeah.
I'm doing it.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
batching is huge. I think batching content is huge. Now I go on with no makeup. I could care less. And the message is more important.
Yeah. And I think like with TikTok, it's less pressure. You don't have to be as polished. And
Yeah.
I've started to just post as a response to whatever I'm working on.
Yeah.
So a client asked me to take over their Pinterest and get traffic. And so I just did a bunch of videos on Pinterest and how to succeed on Pinterest. And just because I was already working on it, it wasn't extra. It's not like, oh, okay, what can I create content on? I'm just like, oh, this is helpful. I'm going to do some videos on it.
Let me share with you what mine was. So I have this client, we've been developing our podcast for like over 2 years now. It's insane. And what she's doing with the show is something that nobody's ever done. And so I'm waiting for the files because it's going through a program so that I can then have the work I need to get done. And then I realized how much she had. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'll lose my mind if I'm not organized. And there's also a lot of people involved, which is not the norm. Usually it's just myself and my client, maybe like a couple assistants, mine, theirs, whatever. There's 6 people involved. And so I created a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, which I sell on my site so that you can use to track your stats, use it for household expenses, just to be organized in your own way. You customize it, make it your own. So I started using this spreadsheet for her files. At the end of the day, I have 15 months worth of podcasts that I haven't even listened to yet, just for putting them in their bubble in my Excel spreadsheet. And I'm like, you know what? I need to be showing this on TikTok. And these people that are following me, they were like going crazy. What is that? This is literally just me organizing all of her audio that I haven't even touched yet. But so I know what I need to do as my job to develop and put the show together. So I started filming all these Excel spreadsheet videos, and that was it. So that's all I did for a week and a half. Like, back to the Excel spreadsheet. Here's another update. I'm like,
yeah. And people find that helpful because they don't really know the process. I even get that even with around my podcast, like, how do you organize your podcast? People like really want to know behind the scenes stuff, period.
Yeah. Everything behind the scenes. And for us, it's totally different. That's something I think that people also put a lot of pressure on themselves with, is like, you and I have 2 totally different ways of doing something. And that's okay. If you see somebody doing something, like if somebody's watching how I'm updating this Excel spreadsheet, that might stress them out, like to the 10th degree. Like, you have to find your own way where you feel comfortable doing that. When I was in corporate America, I hated Excel spreadsheets. Now I create one and sell it. I'm like, who am I? But I made it my own. There's no formulas. There's no stress involved. It's a beautiful color-coded situation.
Yeah. That's why we need all different types of people offering
Yeah.
the similar things. One thing I've learned about even just being on this podcast is every single person I interview, even if they have the same title, does things completely different.
Oh yeah.
And a perfect example could be like the spreadsheets or whatever it is. I'll give you an example. I remember taking a course from another digital marketer, and she was teaching people like how to create and sell online courses. And I had already done it all, but I was curious. And she had a special. So I went and I got access. And she was so extremely detailed, like extreme, cross your T, every single thing you could have possibly thought of, she had in there in an extreme way. Because the type of personality that she was, the type of person that goes out and studies data and really has to understand all the data before they make a decision. And so then all of the people that would come to her were the same people. Like, I need all the data. But then what I thought was really interesting for me, and I tend to attract similar clients into my business, and you probably noticed this too, that they're more like my personality, where I am strategic, visionary, and we know all the details already. And we just hire people to do whatever. And so they're very different, but they're both equally needed because there's so many different personalities out there, and everyone needs a different angle.
Yeah. I feel the same. All the clients I have now, they're like how I am as well, or we put each other on our own little path as we work together. Because some clients I only write for, some I develop the whole show for, some I'm coaching, some I'm just producing. So it depends on if I need to be in your brain and write for you, but I feel like now, because all the clients I've had, like the ones I have right now, I've been working with for years, like 2, 3, maybe 3.5 years is the max now. Usually, yeah, about 3.5 now. But I don't know, it's just like such a perfect blend. Like, I'm so lucky. I've never had any crazy situation. I've had to fire a couple people, but
yeah, it's interesting. So can you share a little bit about your book, Everything is Messy, and what is it about, and why should listeners get a copy?
Oh my gosh, such a good question. So I was writing a cookbook, actually. I was writing 2 books. I was writing a book about my life. And then during the pandemic, it's just our brains switched, the whole world changed. And I'm like, why am I writing this depressing story? Nobody wants to know about how I was misdiagnosed, all this. And then it was really hard to write. I had such PTSD. We were in the middle of the pandemic. I'm like, I don't want to write this book anymore. I want to write something that makes me happy, that's going to help other people and make them happy. And I'm like, what makes me happy is cooking. So I started a cookbook, scratched the other one, made a cookbook. It was the chemical-free cookbook. I was writing all these vegan recipes because that's the journey that I was on for healing my body. Once I was misdiagnosed, I got off the chemo, all the meds, like I needed all that out. So I started eating a lot of vegan meals. And so I was creating all these delicious recipes, and I'm like, I'm going to write a cookbook. So every day I went to the beach and I was writing this book. But then when I would write the recipe, the story came to my head of why I created that. And then like I started writing chapters. And then all of a sudden I have a whole new book with a cookbook. So I put them together. So
wow. That's creative.
So as with everything, it's never not the norm in my world. So it's personal development. It's about a 2-hour read. And basically it's a book to get you to the exact place where you need to be right now. It will motivate you, inspire you, stimulate you, like really want you to do more with your life, whether it's personally or professionally. And then in between, there are recipes. So there's 4 breakfast, 4 lunch, 4 dinner. And then I did sweet and salty snacks as well. And this is the book, Everything is Messy. I'm in the middle of recording the audiobook. It's very thin, so you can definitely read it in about 2 hours. But if you need some more motivation, if you're feeling stuck, if you're like, I want more out of life, or if you just want to learn more delicious recipes and how to make them really, like, they're short and sweet. They're nothing, it's not complicated. I like to do everything like straight to the point. And that's what the book is all about. So I put them together. It's a 2-in-1.
That's awesome. So can you share some of your client success stories?
Oh my gosh, definitely growing their brand globally with the show, and then selling out coaching programs. LinkedIn, when I coach clients on LinkedIn, that's something I've been doing since like 2012. landing like the biggest deals out of their career, as I have as well. That's why when I really started using LinkedIn for my business, now my purpose is to coach on the platform and show people how to use it to expand their business, but also repurpose their podcast. But being able to be seen and heard in other countries other than the US, they don't really have that access with social media. But with a podcast, when I develop a show for them, they do. That in turn is like a sales funnel for their coaching programs and what they're selling, and then they sell out.
I like that.
Yeah.
So what do you think has been your truth that has gotten you this far in your journey?
My truth is never being able to give up, and just like waking up every day and just living like an honest life, like being grateful and never giving up. There's not one time I represented myself in 6 medical malpractice cases. So that right there in the middle of the pandemic, and I closed them in 18 months. Like there's no stopping me. And I feel like I want to show other people how to do that themselves. So I feel like if I just stay on that path and be true to who I am, I'm very open and honest, especially like with the mental health, like we discussed before, like you're going to have those days. I'm not perfect. I'm going to tell you I'm not perfect. I show up on the internet and I cry my eyes out when I was sick. I still do it sometimes. I'm the raw and real deal. And I feel if you live that path and if you want something, you can't give up. And then I preach that to my clients and they're like, I don't know how you're like that. I'm like, I got a second chance. So now I'm here to share with you how to do it. And I just show up. I just show up. That's it.
So if you were able to give yourself one piece of advice when you first started out on your journey, what would it be?
That's such a good question. I'd probably say I think I doubted myself in the beginning just because I was so confused that I was still basically alive and that I could do this. I still felt like I was sick, and that was obviously like my PTSD, but I feel like comparing myself to other people that have been in the industry for so many years, where I had to pivot. I coached so many clients during the pandemic because I already experienced what it was like to lose everything and have to bring it to the internet. I already experienced that when I was sick. So I was able to coach a lot of people and pivot and bring their brands online where they didn't know what the heck to do. And so I feel like comparing myself to somebody that was in the space that I entered years, if they have 10 years of experience, I was in luxury travel for years. Like, why am I trying to compare myself to a coach? I'm like, I'm going to bring my own flair to it. Like, you can't be doing that. I never do it now, but that was a long time ago. I feel like I should have been in a specific position where they were at, but I'm like, I just came into this bubble. Like, why? It's the pressure.
Yeah.
Now I could care less. I'm like, I'm just going to give it to you raw and real and help you get to exactly where you want to be. And that's it. I just show up and do my thing. And I'm just grateful that I get to do that.
Yeah, definitely. So if there are people that are listening, would love to work with you, what's the best way to contact you?
Probably my website, kellyanngorman.com, my podcast, Kellyann Cares podcast. It's available everywhere, just like yours. Everythingismessy.com is where you can grab my book. I have an e-commerce store now that I did during the pandemic, which was so fun. I have a whole merch line now. That was really fun to create. Something new experience for me, e-commerce. That was a nice learning purpose. So we're always learning. Yeah, kellyanngorman.com has my show, my coaching, everything, my book. That's my hub. And then I'm online, Instagram, TikTok, Kellyann Gorman Official. You could definitely find all my links on my website.
Perfect. I'll put all those links down below. Kellyann, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your expertise.
Thank you for having me. I can't wait for you to be on my show coming soon.
Yeah, that'll be good. So if you're listening, and you want more information about this podcast or upcoming shows, you can visit acalltothrive.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.